All right. Welcome back to another Wright Stew podcast. I am Paul Stewart.
And I am Brian Wright, I think, and today is Hump Day, and we made it
Okay.
halfway through the week. So, hey, a lot of stories, but I want to start with this, Polly. How often do you see guys get promotions that don't deserve it or maybe haven't met a goal? Speaking specifically on the West Virginia basketball coach, kind of got snubbed from the NCAA tournament.
Darian DeVries, yeah.
Gets a promotion, I would assume, right? Indiana is a historic
From West
program.
Virginia, West Virginia to Indiana. Indiana is a blue blood kind
It
of
is.
program.
It's really, for the longest time, it's right there with Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, right there with the blue bloods for 25 years, if not longer, maybe 30 years.
Yeah. And West Virginia not known for historically for their basketball program. They've had some runs. They've had some good teams.
Well, they had Huggy there for a bit, and
Yeah,
he looked like habitually a alcoholic that was getting over a hangover. But he did find ways to win and find ways to get players there. He was always sweating profusely on the sideline, which, I'm sure is a bigger guy who put on some weight in a gym. Still dressed very kind of old school. A lot of times was still.
I like the sweater with like the the collared shirt underneath. He felt like a big like windbreaker kind of guy as well.
Yeah, I remember him in that. He could go
like
big
especially
windbreaker.
Especially like the late '90s, early 2000s when he was at Cincinnati, just running the show there.
And really had really good teams. And Cincinnati really wasn't what they produced a lot of good players in basketball, football. Let's talk about this. How about sideline attire? If Paul Stewart is the coach,
this is an interest. I like this. This is interesting because you go through all of the professional sports, and so our sport, baseball, is the only one where the coach or manager wears the uniform of the player. Right? You don't see any, there's clearly no basketball. Phil Jackson's not wearing a Bulls or a Lakers jersey. Andy Reid's not throwing pads on. You're wearing whatever it is. I don't know why baseball moved to that. Because I know back in the day, the managers would wear suits in the dugout. Right. But I don't know where that tradition actually started.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that originally the managers were player coaches. Right?
Yeah. Fair.
Early on. And so I think that's pretty obvious. Then you had like managers that were almost like GMs that were suit guys, but the actual coaches were player coaches. And so that kind of made sense. If I was a coach now, I would definitely do a pullover. I'd want a way to distinguish myself. I wouldn't feel, I'm not wearing anything tight. I'm not wearing anything high. I had a coach in college, Billy Jones, great coach, ended up coaching at Oklahoma State. And then came back to App State, didn't have as much success as a head coach, but as an assistant at NC State and Oklahoma State, had some really, like assistant coach of the year, some really good accolades. He wore number 56. And I asked him, I was like, dude, why are you wearing number 56? And he's like, it keeps me humble. And I was like, I like that. Because nobody wants number 56.
Lawrence Taylor fan. I thought you liked LT.
Yeah, but football, there's a lot of different numbers now. So let's go down the first rabbit hole first. What would Paul Stewart be wearing on the sideline?
It's going to depend, right? If I'm an NBA coach?
No, you're a college coach at
college basketball.
Yeah, NC State's job's open. You're a college coach at NC State right now.
You know what?
Regular Clemson playing Clemson on a Tuesday night.
You know who I like? I like John Shire's looks. The slacks and the Duke pullover, maybe pulled up to 3/4. Like a quarter zip sort of thing. Because you can just wear a straight T-shirt underneath. I think that's probably my look, the quarter zip pullover. And then if it gets hot, it gets hot in those gyms, just throw that off and just be wearing a T-shirt. I'm not big on. I don't like wearing suits. I hate wearing ties. I don't think I would ever. There's only a couple times in my life now where I wear a suit or a tie. It's either a funeral or a job interview,
or a wedding, maybe.
Or a wedding, I guess.
And all of those are events that you're not necessarily looking forward to doing, depending on the situation.
Yeah. So I think I'm like a quarter zip, like kind of a pullover guy, something comfortable. I think I go with some clean tennis shoes. Yeah, as the head coach of a program, you probably have a lot of options for different shoes depending on who you have contracts with. That's probably my look, man. I think that's widely accepted now as well.
Oh, I definitely think you're absolutely right. It's widely accepted. I remember Coach K and Roy Williams, and I think even Dean. Like you knew when they took their jacket off,
Oh, they're
like
bad.
they
Yeah,
were fired up, and they didn't do it often. A lot of times it was in big games in certain situations, and announcers would mention it, and so I
Dick
kind of like,
Vitale would go crazy. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
he's throwing the yeah.
yeah, it's almost like a wrestling move where
Yeah.
somebody's taking off, whatever. And so I like the idea of like being able to pull out the Superman cape occasionally.
Yeah.
You couldn't
You
do it
know,
often.
you know who was the best at throwing the jacket off?
Tell me.
Gary Williams.
Yes. Yeah. Now he
That
did it a little
era.
bit more often, and he sweated profusely.
He sweated a
Um,
lot.
yeah, he, he
Yeah.
he was a sweater. But you know what, dude? We can experience it on some level. And I say more with football coaching, little kid football and stuff. You feel like you're more part of the game when you're calling plays, every play. And a lot of times basketball, it's kind of a micromanaged situation opposed to baseball. Even at young ages, man, you put them out there and they've got to know where to throw the ball. You can help them. But I feel like football, basketball, especially, they feel like they're in the game because they're almost acting as a point guard. You got a point guard on the court that is essentially an extension. But going back, I would go jacket and save that jacket toss from when I really needed that extra juice. And I
Yeah.
might go just pull over, play khakis, tennis shoes, but a sport coat, and the sport coat only comes off when it's time to get serious.
Do you go like a nice button-up shirt underneath, or is it a t-shirt, like a university branded?
Yeah, I'm going university branded. I may even go polo. I know probably somebody with more style thinks that's atrocious, but I'm going sport coat over the top, and then when I need it, it's coming off. Right?
That would
Coming
be a
off.
fan favorite.
Oh, for
People would
sure,
love
dude.
that.
I remember, it's definitely, and I used to be obviously a North Carolina fan before I went to NC State, and Dean didn't do it often at all. I can remember one or two times, and I watched him from the time I was 6, 7 years old to I was
Yeah.
17 years old. But when he did it, and especially Coach K, when he did it, and if it was in Cameron, dude, the people went nuts. It just changed the whole energy of the vibe, which I like.
It was definitely, yeah, it was definitely a thing they held on to when they needed a little juice or something like that
Or
from
you
the
could
crowd.
throw, you have, Indiana famously, you could throw chairs. That's the
Well,
sweater.
I don't think you could. I think he just threw the chair, is what Bobby Knight
Bobby
did. Yeah.
Knight, though, you think about Bobby Knight, how long he coached and he went from where you truly could be kind of a dictator to where you needed to be able to be more of a player's coach. He never really could transition to that role. Most of his success was in the 70s and 80s. But he kept that same. He had a sweater. He kind of had the look you originally said, a little sweater and a little shirt poking out over the top.
Yeah, he had like
Yeah.
I feel like when you think Bobby Knight, you think the white collared shirt underneath
Yes.
with the red sweater and
Yes.
probably khaki. That's probably where Jake from State Farm got his look, something similar, right? But that was the classic Bobby Knight look. And it was always interesting because you had different like coaches felt like real personalities, and they were personified whatever that school was. Like Jim Boeheim was at Syracuse forever. You think about suit with the glasses on, or Lou Carnesecca with the sweaters on,
Oh, that was a good one.
or
Yeah.
John Chaney at Temple with the always felt like he wore a maroon tie. Or no, that was Jerry Tarkanian at UNLV chewing on the towels. You just had these coaches who felt like they were there forever and just like I said personified whatever that university was. Even like Jimmy V, at NC State for a long time, and you mentioned Dean and just John Thompson, right? John Thompson always had the towel over his shoulder. There's just so many guys back then, and I think some of it was coaches were given a lot more leeway. Hey, it was a down year. We'll be back next year. We'll get them right.
Well, most of those coaches you mentioned were pretty dang successful too.
Yeah.
Honestly. I mean,
they were good. Yeah, clearly.
They didn't miss many back-to-back years of making a regional or making a run. But I would definitely say those coaches were culture setters and good X's and O's guys. I mean, I think that's what's kind of different now. It's hard to be a culture setter when if you do something that they don't like, or you try to push a button that they don't agree with and they can leave, and you really need them. So it feels like the player's coach is really what you almost have to be now, because when you give power, which is ultimately money power to the player, that gives them ability to make other decisions. And you can only push buttons so hard. Bobby Knight was notorious for, really breaking somebody down emotionally and mentally, and then building them back up as kind of in the image that he wants, and he's the ultimate idol, right? And I don't think that really works for kids at all now. We're not that way as coaches. I don't necessarily think that's the way to go. I do like kids to be able to handle a little bit of tongue lashing, right? And take the good with the bad, because there's going to be coaches that you play for that are going to give you some tongue lashing, and you need to be able to take it, not go into a shell.
Yeah, and it still feels very football. We don't see it a ton in baseball. Like when we see it and we're coaching on travel or whatever, it's typically like the coach yelling at his son. Like that situation, it's really not other.
Well, no, I'm not even
kids.
saying like at our level. I think high school baseball still happens, and I know college baseball still happens. Now, when you get to professional baseball, it's a different thing altogether. You're treated as an adult most of the time.
Yeah.
I got reamed out one time pretty bad. I thought I hit a ball in the ballpark, and I was at Winston-Salem. And it hit the I didn't pimp it, but I jogged right out of the box, and it hit the top of the wall, and I had to sprint and slide to get a double. And so Torey Lavello was my manager.
Oh, okay.
And I come back over. I think I score, and he's like, "Who the fuck do you think you are?" And I was like, "Nobody. My bad. I thought it was gone." You don't jog until you hit 10 or 15 home runs. You don't even know what a home run is. And so anyway, it was good though. It was good. I deserved it.
You deserved it. Yeah.
Moved on, and yeah, it was the right. Everything was good with it. And I've been talked to a lot worse by my father at different times, to be honest with you, too. So it was not anything that really hurt my feelings. I thought you're right. I was kind of embarrassed by it, but also felt like if the wind was blowing the right way, that ball should have got out.
Yeah.
If I'd had these maple bats nowadays, I don't know, dude. These maple bats, I feel like they're really close. I mean, there's such a huge difference. Nobody's using ash anymore. These maple bats, dude, the way the ball jumps off these bats is just incredible. I mean, now you got all this exit velo. And Banks asked me, my son asked me, he was like, "What do you think your exit velo would have been?" I was like, "I don't know, Banks."
It
was more like, hey, you know how we track the exit velo? Was it a hit or was it a home run? Right.
Yeah,
and then if it was one of those two things, you knew you had enough. Right.
Yeah. Nobody cared about exit velo back in the. Did I get a hit? Was it a knock? Yeah. Did I square it up? Yeah. Did I hit it on the barrel? That was kind of your factors that you looked at, right? And sometimes you lined out or hit it on the screws and got out, but felt good, right? My hands were.
Yeah, you did your part. Yeah, you did your part.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think I've shared that. My son asked me all the time. I was like, "Well, when you were 13 or 14, how hard were you throwing?" I don't know. We didn't have pocket radars or what. I was like, I threw it hard enough where a lot of people were swinging and missing. That's what I know. And so it's fine. So I want to go back. So back to the Indiana coaching. So interesting. They've been through. So since Bobby Knight was there from 1971 to the year 2000. So pretty 30-year run essentially. So since then though, they've had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, now 7 coaches in the next 25 years. So again, shows you how good he really was, how much he was winning, how much they trusted in him to build the program and maintain the program. And I mean, just a great. I don't know if he's something that I would have personally wanted to play for.
No, I don't think so either. But I'll say this: I feel like Indiana is like a later version of NC State, where they are chasing that.
They're chasing ghosts.
Yeah, they're chasing ghosts, man. That Final Fours and always competing at the top of their conference, and almost a guarantee into the NCAA. And they've had some good years since then. So to have 6 head coaches in 25 years seems incredible because they've had some good years and some good coaches there.
And I think it is. It's a pressure cooker for sure. The expectations are through the roof. And again, it probably you're right. Probably is comparable to NC State, where people have these
And NC
unreal,
State from the 70s and
yeah,
80s,
yeah, yeah. And people have these unrealistic expectations of we should be in the Final Four every year. We should be doing this, and Sweet 16 runs, and so it's tough, man. It's not.
and all
It's
of a
not
sudden you
easy.
fire somebody for making the NCAA tournament, not making a run, and then all of a sudden you fire somebody because you're not getting into the tournament, and so
Yeah.
you just keep kind of downgrading because the program doesn't become that. That's the reason what they've done at North Carolina, Duke, um, over 30, 40, 50 years is just that much more incredible because when you get the right coach, that's
Hang
one
on to
thing.
him, man. Hang on to him. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's another thing if you're able to do it with different coaches, and then it's a culture that's even greater than the coach, which is really the exception. I mean, even Kentucky, with all their success, they're still chasing some of their ghosts. When Patino was there, was really kind of their heyday, and they've had some good years. Obviously,
Well,
Calipari and some other
Common
guys.
way back in the day for sure, right? But even in the Big Ten, you've got some University of Illinois has a pretty solid program always. Michigan State, I mean, they've been to the tournament every year for the past 25, 28 years, whatever it is. University of Michigan has won a couple of national titles in that time frame.
But
Oh,
they've also had some,
well, they've had some
some
stinkers as well. Juwan Howard
yeah.
got there and didn't really, fulfill what they thought he would. Ohio State's had a solid basketball program, and now you've got UCLA and USC and Oregon and Southern Cal in there, and Washington and Wisconsin has had some good teams as well. So I mean, it's not a cupcake conference by any means, right? So, um,
It feels like Oregon would be better. It feels like some of that football Nike money or that Nike
feels like they
money,
should be the best at everything. You're right. I mean, I agree with all
you know,
all that Nike.
and really with even baseball. And I know that's maybe not a desirable place, but you should be able to pull a lot of those West Coast kids who don't want to go to the SEC or don't want to
Yeah.
go to some other parts of the country. And it feels like Oregon, with all their resources, they should be the creme de la creme of the West Coast. And
Yeah.
obviously they've done some of those things with football. It just doesn't seem like the other sports that they've made that jump. And that Oregon State
Oregon
baseball has
State
been really
baseball's
good.
been legit. Yeah.
Yeah, been really good. But Oregon has always never quite taken that step. And even basketball is very much up and down and a lot
Yeah, they've
more.
had a couple good, really good teams, but it's not. Nobody says they're a national power
That's
consistent.
right.
They're not a perennial. So one of the most recent coaches, Archie Miller, was at Indiana for a couple of years. When he went from
Yep.
Dayton to. Did you ever run into Archie Miller while on campus, or was he
Oh
just
yeah, yeah.
before
We
you?
hung out. We hung out. Archie and I hung out a little bit. He's a little bit older. He had a couple back surgeries, and I knew his girlfriend at the time, wife, and they were dating in college, and I think they're still married. I don't know for sure, but it definitely was his wife at one point in time. But yeah, dude, good dude. I mean, I think he was listed at 6 foot. He's 5'9".
He
On a
looked
good
like he
day.
was like 5'5", dude. He was
Yeah, yeah.
huge. Yeah.
Very much a grinder. Come from a basketball family, good guy. But yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I was pulling for him. Yeah, that was the same time he went to Indiana. There was rumors that he may come back to NC State, and I think everybody wants to be able to do what Duke and what North Carolina can do is always find guys that have a connection to the university,
Yeah,
and
bring it
that's
back.
really hard to do. And Archie took that job at Indiana, and it kind of felt like he was out above his skis a little bit. And I'm sure he would have a different, maybe
And he wouldn't put it that,
explanation.
yeah, but Archie actually born 9 days after me, so 9 days younger than me. But I remember watching him at NC State as well, and just a guy. He was kind of one of those early 3-point guys. He just loved to get out there and just bomb threes. I think if he played today, he'd be the guy who never shot a shot inside the 3-point line. But he was one of those kind of guys, but a solid basketball player, kind of knew
Yeah, yeah,
his
especially
role.
especially a solid college, comes from a great basketball family. His brother's obviously a really good coach too.
Yeah,
He was
Sean
on the
Miller's a
staff.
great coach. What is it
So
like? What is it like for you, Brian? 'Cause I know we mentioned McCullough coaching or managing the Marlins this year for the first time, and you know him a little bit. But what is it like for you to see a guy like Archie Miller, who you're friends with, coaching Indiana basketball? Are you like, like, wait, I know this guy. Like
No, it's not though.
can you do that?
You kind of, and I'm sure you got over that really early with minor league ball, especially when you went up to big league
Yeah.
camp and you were playing against guys. You kind of get past that really quickly. And I'm sure you had guys that you played with that eventually signed some pretty big contracts, and you thought, I was better than that guy, or I was just as good as that guy. And not in an arrogant, conceited kind of way, just kind of factual way. And I kind of felt the same way. There were a number of guys that I played with that signed that 3 or 4 year, $20 million, $22 million, $18 million. That I felt like I was just as good as or better. And at the time, before I got hurt, I was above them as far as, getting to play. I think about Luke Scott. I think about Willie Tavares. I think about a number of guys that was in our outfield that eventually got some big league time. And so it's kind of the same way, dude. I've learned a long time ago, probably in college early, that the only way you can have peace with a team environment is you better pull for the team to win. So whatever that looks like. So you want to see guys do well. You do not want to pull against guys. You pull against guys, there's something that happens in the world that things just start happening poorly for you.
Bad mojo.
Bad mojo. You always want to be pulling for guys, even if that guy is in front of you, because eventually you'll get your chance. Everybody gets their chance in life or in sport. You'll get a chance. So you better be pulling for the team to win and pulling for the person in front of you to do well, and then eventually you will get your chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw some of that in the minor leagues as well, where I mean, guys were legitimately like openly pulling against their teammates. So if it was if it was somebody on the pitching staff, they got you're in the stands doing a chart with this other guy, and somebody gives up a home run, like I'm like, geez, that's pretty crappy. Like, how about you just pitch better? Don't worry about like if you both got 6 ERAs and yours is 6.2 and there's a 6.4.
Nobody's making it. Yeah, they're gonna find somebody else.
Yeah, and again, like I wasn't, clearly like God's gift to pitching, but at the same time, I feel like I was a good teammate and generally, I pulled for some guys harder than others because I had a better personal
relationship. You got closer relationships, but not pulling against. Yeah, I mean, I think that is. And it takes some it takes some maturity, it takes some perspective, because it's just like it just does something to your soul. It's almost saying like hating people. It's like taking poison and hoping the other person dies, right? And so you're better off to pull for somebody than you are to pull against.
Yeah, and so we talked about sideline attire and decorum in some of these sports, Brian. Recently, within the past couple of days, comedian actor Tracy Morgan was on the sideline watching a game and vomited all over the court. And they actually had to stop the game. He was out, they pulled him out in a wheelchair. And he's had some, so I haven't dug in. I don't know if it was, he's had some issues. He was in that accident and had some stomach issues. I don't know if there was anything else, like alcohol or anything else related. It may have just been a genuinely, like, just couldn't handle a hot dog or something. I don't know why he threw up. I didn't dig into it much. But have you ever been on the field or around and seen somebody throw up on the field? Or any situation like that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, really? I've had a couple when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I had the chicken pox, got sick, and started getting real hot. Threw up on the field, covered it up with dirt, kept playing. I'll say this, kind of proud dad moment. My son was playing football, and it's one of the hot early games, and he had been running, obviously playing a little running back, and he got hit pretty hard, but not hard enough to where I was worried about concussion. But he just been running.
Yeah.
And on his way off from the sidelines, he threw up on the field as he's running off. And that just happened this past year. And then I would say definitely when I was playing, there were times that I didn't feel well. I don't think I ever actually threw up on the field. But there were definitely times where I felt like, there could be something happening there with the stomach. And you get concerned, right? I'll tell you another story. I had won't call it a teammate because we played with each other, but he was much older, grew up small town type environment, had worked out into the field, had been working in the fields all day, gets super hot, and then go to the baseball game, take a shower, feel like you cooled off, but all of a sudden get diarrhea. So I knew a kid who had diarrhea on the field. And that's hard to overcome. But when you grow up small town, you literally work from sun up to sundown, then go to a Legion baseball game. And that's some real character building right there.
Oh yeah, man. So it actually says it was food poisoning for Tracy Morgan, is what they said. So
And who knows if that's true or not? Yeah.
yeah, whether it is or not. Yeah, I can't. So I've shared with you guys in the audience that I used to throw up before every game, but I try to make it as discreet as possible. Find a the dugout bathroom or wherever it is. I could just I wasn't out there like in center field just heaving. It was in a tunnel or in somewhere where nobody could see it as far as I knew. But I remember one time. You remember like people were talking about carb loading way back, and that was a big carb load. Like eat your pasta before. And I remember in Little League, I had like a big game, like it was a big Little League game. It was like a couple undefeated teams, and um, so I ate like a big bowl of like fettuccine Alfredo before. And I remember saying it was a hot like North Carolina summer day, and we started moving around a little bit. I was like, oh god. And I ran over, but behind the big dumpster over there, behind that blue building, it went blah, and just threw out over the place, and felt better right after. But just that truly understand what carb loading was at the time of my life when I was 11 or 12, whatever it was. So yeah, man, that's a rough go. But Tracy, we hope you get better, man. I loved you on 30 Rock and some of your movies and things. So funny guy, funny guy. Well, Brian, we've got March Madness games, the first four kind of in action, in motion right now. And then we get to the big one on Thursday. Kicking off. Brian, are you planning on kind of doing a little work from home, having the game on in the background, or are you just going to be out
No,
catching scores on an app, or what are you doing?
it still hadn't hit me, Polly. I mean, if I'm being honest, I mean,
Be honest. Tell us the
I'd like to
truth.
pretend like I care, but right now, I mean, I'm sure I'll watch the games. The games will be on, but there's been times in my life, dude, and not even really that long ago, I was fully in, and I kind of set my day up around it.
Yeah.
And that's not the case anymore. So I'm sure I'll watch. I'll definitely keep up with some scores if I think about it, right? Minus the other, 30 things I need to get done or think about. But it's not the forefront, if I'm being honest. How about you? Are you stoked about it? Have you got your little sheet filled out?
I haven't filled out a bracket yet. We'll definitely be filling out a bracket. We'll let you know who our selections are.
I like that.
I'm waiting for the first four to get done, and then I'll because nobody picks the first four. You can kind of let that get done, then you fill out your sheet, right? 'Cause that's kind of insane to pick those, I guess. But I'll let that get
But
done.
it's not anymore, bro. It's kind of like, I mean, there's big name teams. I mean, Texas Xavier's in that, North Carolina's in that
Yeah.
first four. There's a lot of big. They've kind of changed. It used to be where it's like these
Oh, it's
random
the smaller
conferences.
conferences. Yeah, that sort of thing. But I think from a gambling and a bracket filling out perspective, nobody expects you to select the first four. Like that's not a precedent that's been set yet. So, yeah, I'll probably kind of like I described to you. I'll have a TV on. I'll have my laptop on. Be just tracking and following the games and just watching. Man, it's the first couple days are probably the most exciting because like you've got 32 games on right in 2 days, and they all matter. There's always a couple of buzzer beaters. There's a couple of upsets. You learn all these random names of people and super fans. Who was it a couple years ago where the nun was like the super fan?
I
You hear all these
remember,
kind of
but
fun
yeah.
backstories and
So
um,
you get into that. That does, again, that's something on me. There's something wrong with me. I could care less. It's like, dude, I don't care. Like, let's just see who wins. That's terrible, isn't it? I mean, I fully admit that makes no sense. I know they build these stories for people. They're not for me. Clearly,
the
I
human
should
interest
care.
piece.
I like now if it's a player story, like a player who went to a JUCO or grew up he was homeless for 3 years. If it's a player, I'm into it. But if it's like some random fan that's been a fan for 80 years and it's like, I don't know, maybe I'll soften at some point. I think I'm getting kind of more hard hearted as I
Are
get
you
older.
turning into the Grinch, Brian? What's happening here?
No, I think I've always kind of had that in me, right? That kind
When
of
will your
like,
heart grow three sizes?
yeah. I mean, maybe it will one day. Maybe it will. I mean, I'm hopeful. Hopeful.
Maybe Cindy Lou Who will come and change the way you do things, Brian. Maybe we can hope. I think you're doing great, Brian.
She may.
I appreciate you keeping it real for us.
I try to.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, hey, thank you all for listening today. We appreciate it. Make sure when you're listening to this, we appreciate you giving us a rating on Apple Pods or Spotify or Our Heart, leaving comments, leaving reviews. We do appreciate that. That helps us out tremendously, and that gets us deeper into those algorithms where other people it'll pop up on their feed. So we appreciate that, and make sure you continue to like and subscribe, and hey, tell a friend. Tell a friend about the old Wright Stew podcast, and we appreciate that. So, otherwise, have an amazing hump day.
Out, go back.